Eleanor Vance, a woman whose life had been meticulously constructed line by line, much like the blueprints she once drafted, was in her garden. At 78, her fingers, though gnarled with age and the faint tremors of Parkinson's, moved with the familiar grace of a sculptor tending to her clay. Each rose petal she pruned from the climbing Cecile Brunner felt like a tiny, fragile memory, the blush of a baby's cheek, the soft curve of her late husband Robert's smile, the gentle arc of a dream she had once held. Her home, a sprawling, elegant structure of glass, cedar, and stone, was not just a house, it was the physical embodiment of her entire existence. She had designed it herself, 5 decades ago, a testament to her vision and the quiet ambition that simmered beneath her gentle exterior. From the soaring, light-filled atrium that served as its heart, to the perfectly aligned sightlines that offered glimpses of the perennial garden from every room, it was a masterpiece. It was where she and Robert had shared their deepest joys, where their children, David and Clara, had taken their first steps and dreamt their first dreams. Every alcove held a whisper of laughter, every scratch on the hardwood floors a tale of childhood mischief. It was Eleanor's magnum opus, not just of architecture, but of her life's love. The afternoon sun, usually a comforting embrace, felt oddly accusatory as a sleek, unfamiliar car pulled into her gravel driveway. A young man, barely out of college, in a suit that seemed determined to constrict his youth, stepped out. He clutched a tablet, his eyes darting between it and Eleanor, who remained frozen by her rose bushes, pruning shears dangling from her fingers. "Mrs. Vance," he called out, his voice slightly reedy with nerves. "Blake Harrison, from Sterling Properties. Just confirming the details for the new listing. It's a gorgeous property. Your children have been wonderful to work with. New listing." The words echoed in Eleanor's mind, hollow and disorienting. She blinked, trying to make sense of them. A listing implied a sale. Her home? No. It was impossible. David and Clara, her 2 successful, perpetually busy children, knew this house was sacred. They knew its every hidden story, every sacrifice woven into its very fabric. I don't understand," Eleanor managed, her voice a fragile thing against the sudden, overwhelming silence of the garden. "There must be some mistake. This house is not for sale." Blake's nervous smile wavered. "Oh, well, Mrs. Vance, your son, David, he assured us everything was in order. Said you were excited for a change. He mentioned you'd be moving to a lovely assisted living community. The contracts are all signed. The contracts are all signed. Contracts are all signed." The air seemed to leave Eleanor's lungs. Her vision swam, the vibrant colors of her garden blurring into a suffocating green. The pruning shears slipped from her trembling hand, clattering against the old paving stones with a sharp, final sound. It was the sound of something breaking. Something irreparable. The ensuing confrontation with her children that evening was less a conversation, and more a carefully orchestrated performance of dismissal. David arrived first, a harried executive constantly tethered to his phone. He barely met her gaze, his words clipped, rehearsed. "Mom, what's all this about a real estate agent? I told him to be discreet. We'll talk about this later, I'm on a critical call." He retreated to the library, his voice a low, urgent murmur as he spoke into his headset, a human barrier erected between them. Clara, David's younger sister, arrived next, her designer handbag clutched tight, her posture rigid with a practiced empathy that never quite reached her eyes. She wore the uniform of a high-powered attorney, impeccable, unyielding. "Mom," Clara began, her voice soft but firm, "we've made a decision. It's what's best for you. The house is simply too much for you to manage alone now. And frankly, the upkeep is astronomical. We found a wonderful assisted living community, the Golden Grove. It's beautiful, Mom, with 24/7 care, activities, friends your own age. We've already handled the paperwork. We were going to tell you once everything was finalized, so you wouldn't worry. Handled the paperwork. Wouldn't worry. The phrases were surgical, designed to cut away her agency, to numb her protest. Eleanor stared at her daughter, a woman she had literally built a life for. This house, Eleanor said, her voice trembling not from weakness, but from a burgeoning rage, is my life. I built this place. Every stone, every beam, every window was chosen with care, with love. Do you remember the secret passage David used to hide in as a boy? The arched window in your bedroom, Clara, that perfectly frames the old oak tree. These aren't just features, they are memories. They are us. The words were met with a blank, almost impatient silence. David, emerging from the library, finally disconnected from his call, though his attention remained elsewhere. Mom, don't be so dramatic. It's just an old house. And you're not getting any younger. We're not selling it to hurt you. We're doing it to help you. To keep you safe. You're not in a position to make these decisions on your own anymore. Not in a position to make these decisions on your own. The words sliced deeper than any real estate contract. They were a denial of her competence, her history, her very self. The irony was a bitter taste in her mouth. She, Eleanor Vance, the respected architect, who had designed corporate headquarters and municipal buildings, now deemed incapable of deciding her own living arrangements. A wave of memories, sharp and vivid, crashed over her. She remembered selling her beloved architectural firm, her true passion, 25 years ago. It had been a difficult decision, a painful severance from her professional identity, but David's fledgling tech startup was teetering on the brink of collapse. It's just a bridge loan, Mom, he had promised, his boyish charm still potent then. I'll pay you back with interest once we go public. He never did. The business fizzled, taking her firm's sale price with it. Then, Clara. Her brilliant, ambitious Clara, accepted into an Ivy League law school. The tuition was staggering. Eleanor, a widow by then, had mortgaged this very house, the one they were now selling without her consent. It's a safe investment, Mom, Clara had assured her, her eyes bright with youthful aspiration. I'll be able to take care of you once I'm a partner. Clara became a partner, indeed. But Eleanor remained on a fixed income, quietly stretching every dollar, never once asking for what she was owed. Every brick in this home, every intricate detail of its design, every memory, was interwoven with a sacrifice for her children. They had literally built their lives on her generosity, her unwavering belief in them. And now, they were selling the foundation out from under her, claiming it was for her own good. They saw her not as their mother, but as a problem to be solved, an obstacle to their unfettered lives. That night, lying in her bed, the moon casting long, mournful shadows across her familiar room, Eleanor felt a profound emptiness. She was surrounded by the physical manifestation of her life's work and love, yet she was utterly alone. She closed her eyes, clutching an old, faded blueprint, the original design for this very house, to her chest. A quiet, burning resolve began to simmer within her. They might sell her house, but they would not sell her soul. The following morning, a strange calm settled over Eleanor. The sorrow and rage of the previous night had solidified into a cold, clear determination. She rose with a new purpose. They wanted to build a new life for her. Fine. She would build one herself, one they knew nothing about, one entirely on her own terms. Her first act was to revisit a long-forgotten secret. Deep within an old cedar chest in her study, beneath a stack of old architectural journals, she found a small, leather-bound ledger. It was her rainy day fund, a meager savings account from a series of discrete freelance design projects she had undertaken years ago, after selling her firm. Money she had squirreled away, penny by penny, never touched by David's failed ventures or Clara's lavish lifestyle. It wasn't much, perhaps $15,000, but it was hers. It was enough to start. Next, she found an old address book. Her finger traced the worn pages until it landed on a name, Marcus Thorne. Marcus, a brilliant architect in his own right, had been a friendly rival in her youth, a man who always respected her talent, even when others overlooked it. After Robert's passing, Marcus had called, offering condolences and mentioning a community workshop he'd started in a different state, a place where older architects could mentor young, aspiring designers. She had politely declined then, too mired in her grief and the lingering sense of obligation to her children. Now, his offer felt like a beacon. Eleanor walked through her beloved home one last time, not with sadness, but with a strange sense of detachment, as if she were a prospective buyer evaluating a property. She touched the smooth, cool granite of the kitchen counter, the worn leather of Robert's armchair, the carved wooden banister where David had once slid down, giggling. These were not mere objects. They were fragments of a life she was about to shed. She opened her sketchpad, not to design, but to draw. She drew her favorite corner of the living room, the way the light fell through the atrium, the view from her bedroom window. Not as a record of loss, but as a final, precise observation, an architect's tribute to a completed project. In the kitchen, she placed a single, elegant brass key on the polished granite island. Beside it, a crisp, white envelope. Her handwriting, though a little shaky, was clear as she addressed it, David and Clara Vance. Inside, the letter she had painstakingly composed. My dearest David and Clara. You have decided to sell the home that holds every memory of my life, the physical manifestation of my love and sacrifice for you both. You have replaced my sacrifices with glossy brochures for a new, sterile existence, an existence you have chosen for me without my consent. You have declared me incapable of making my own decisions, of managing my own life. So, I have made a decision of my own. I am selling the last thing I truly own, my freedom, not for you, but for myself. I am leaving this house, which you have reduced to a transaction. I will find a new home, one that you did not choose for me, and one that is finally my own. I have spent my entire life building for others. It is time I built for myself. Do not look for me. Do not call. I will not answer. This is not an act of anger, but of self-preservation. I am reclaiming the right to live, truly live, before my time runs out. Eleanor Vance, your mother, until today. With a small, worn travel bag in hand and her cherished portfolio of design sketches tucked securely under her arm, Eleanor hailed a taxi. Not to the airport, which felt too grand, too conspicuous. No, a humble bus station. A more anonymous and fitting escape for a woman shedding a lifetime of silent service. As the taxi pulled away, she took one last, lingering look at her home, the sun glinting off its glass facade. It was a beautiful prison she was finally leaving behind. The bus ride was long, a blurring landscape of sleepy towns and endless highways, but Eleanor felt no fatigue. Only a quiet, resolute energy. She was journeying toward an unknown, but it was an unknown of her own making. The sense of lightness, of having shed an immense weight, was almost intoxicating. Marcus Thorne, his face etched with more lines than she remembered, but his eyes still sharp and kind, was waiting for her at the Dallas terminal. He wasn't surprised by her story, only by the children's audacity. Eleanor, he said, pulling her into a warm, genuine hug, a physical comfort she hadn't felt in years. I always knew you had more fire in you than they gave you credit for. You're exactly what my workshop needs. Come, share your genius with these kids. Eleanor found a small, sun-filled apartment in a quiet Dallas neighborhood, a stark contrast to the grand home she had left behind. It was modest, practical, and utterly her own. For the first time in decades, she chose furniture not for its family heirloom potential, but for its comfort and her personal taste. She threw herself into the community workshop, a vibrant hub of creativity and learning. Surrounded by eager young architects, their eyes bright with the same passion that had once consumed her, Eleanor felt a spark reignite within her. She taught them the intricacies of structural integrity, the poetry of light and shadow, the ethics of sustainable design. She shared stories of her own projects, her voice gaining strength, her confidence blooming with each shared lesson. She was no longer just a mother, a caregiver, a forgotten matriarch. She was Eleanor Vance, the architect. Her hands, once trembled with Parkinson's, now moved with renewed purpose, sketching, guiding, building. The young students revered her, hanging on to her every word, soaking in her vast experience. They saw her as a fount of wisdom, not a frail old woman. Back in her old city, chaos had erupted. David and Clara, initially dismissive, had found the letter and the empty house. Their calls turned frantic, then angry, then laced with a desperate, late-realized guilt. "Mom, this is ridiculous. You can't just disappear." David's voicemail screamed. "We're worried sick. This is dangerous for your health." Clara pleaded. They scoured the city, notified authorities, spinning a tale of a confused elderly woman who had wandered off. But Eleanor was far away, too busy living to answer. Weeks turned into months. Eleanor thrived in Dallas. She joined a walking group, made new friends at the local library, and even took up pottery, her hands finding a new kind of creative expression. Her laughter, once a rare and fragile sound, became more frequent, more resonant. One afternoon, in her sunny apartment, she spread out a fresh sheet of drafting paper. This time, the design was purely for her. A small, elegant home, not for a family's legacy, but for her own peace and happiness. It incorporated everything she had learned, every detail reflecting her recovered self. A compact, open-plan living space, a small, efficient kitchen, a sun-drenched reading nook, and a private studio where she could continue to sketch and teach. It had a small, manageable garden for her beloved roses and jasmine, and a large window in the living room that perfectly framed the Texas sunset. It was her new masterpiece. It wasn't about grandeur or impressing anyone. It was about function, beauty, and absolute self-sufficiency. It was a blueprint for a life truly her own. As she drew the final lines of the floor plan, a profound sense of peace washed over her. The occasional, increasingly desperate messages from David and Clara continued to trickle in, but Eleanor left them unread. She knew they were probably panicking about the legalities, the appearance, the family name. She knew they were only now beginning to grasp the magnitude of what they had lost, not just a house, but the mother who had held their world together. One evening, Marcus found her still at the workshop, lost in her designs. He peered over her shoulder. "That's beautiful, Eleanor." "What is it?" "My future, Marcus," she replied, a genuine smile lighting her face. "My own design. My own home." He nodded, understanding her completely. "You know, Eleanor, you always built the most incredible things for others. It's about time you built something for yourself." She closed her sketchbook, a sense of completion settling in her heart. She was Eleanor Vance, architect. And for the first time in her life, she was building a future that truly belonged to her alone. She had shed the burden of unrecognized sacrifices, and found the profound liberation of simply being herself. If you want to hear more life stories like this, like the video and subscribe to my channel. There are many more waiting for you.